Hello, everyone. Hey, welcome to this episode of our financial aid series. And here we talk about ways to make college more affordable and easier on your wallet. We talk about things like financial aid, scholarships, loans, tax credits, and so much more, all so you can send your kids to great colleges without financial stress for you or for them. So, if paying for college is in your future, stay tuned for money saving tips you're not going to get from Google, from high school counselors, and certainly not from colleges themselves. My name is Roman Polnar. In case we haven't met, I'm a financial aid expert and your host for these financial aid series. And today, let's talk about how to get financial aid in years two and beyond of your kids' college. And I want to talk about this because I recently got a few questions from parents of high school seniors who got into college, but they didn't get financial aid. And this is happening right here towards the end of May, following the financial acceptance season. And so a lot more parents are now finding themselves in this really tough spot. And it's really important to talk about this today because this is exactly why so many families will end up getting themselves into too much debt. You see, there are only two reasons why someone didn't get the financial aid in the first place. Number one, which is not very intuitive, but number one is that they got into a college that wasn't a good fit. Number two is there was a mistake of some kind on their financial aid form. So, number one, they got accepted into a college that wasn't a good fit. Number two, there was some error or some mistake in their financial aid applications that they didn't know about. So, what if that happens? Whatever the reason is, well, this family would be in a really tough spot because their child has already committed to a college and they're going to start classes in the fall. But then the parents have to pick up a big bill. And what if that bill is just too high? What if it's more than the family can afford? What if the parents know that they just cannot possibly pay that much for all 4 years that their kids are going to be in college? What should they do? Well, I think most parents will decide out of the good parental nature that a lot of us suffer from to just pay for the first year of college by any means necessary. And they'll use whatever savings they have just so that their kids can actually start school, right? Knowing that they'll just they can't do it for year 2, 3, and 4, but they tell themselves, well, it's okay. We'll be all right. Hopefully it's just for 1 year. We'll figure it out next year. So if this is you, then pay attention because what I'm going to share with you next can save you potentially tens of thousands of dollars of wasted money or of borrowed debt. Either way, that's one of the main reasons families will end up overpaying for college is because they're in that tough spot. So if that's you, watch all the way to the end. But if your kids are younger, you've got the benefit of time. And I also want you to pay attention because let this be a cautionary tale that you'll be able to avoid when your kids get into college. All right. So let's go back and let's look at the two reasons why someone got into college but didn't get financial aid. All right. So remember, the first reason is that the college wasn't a good fit. So when your kids are juniors in high school and maybe even sophomores, if you're fortunate, they're going to start looking at colleges. And it's really, really important to know the three different sides of finding a good fit college. It's the most important thing. And we talk about this constantly with our high school junior families, both in these episodes as well as in our private coaching groups. Uh, this is the most important thing that you can do with your kids when they're a junior. You have to help them find a good fit college. And there are three sides to finding a good fit college. Number one, The college has to be a good fit for your student. It's as simple as that, right? The college has to offer the major that your kids might want to study and eventually graduate with, right? It has to have the right learning environment so your kids can actually learn well. Look, it's not a surprise that some kids do better in smaller class environments. Others thrive when there's 200 people in the hall or in the classroom or in the lecture hall. There's also different learning styles, right? And it's really important that you pick a college or colleges before your kids apply that will provide them with a really good learning platform, right? The right experience where they can actually thrive, where they can graduate, hopefully in 4 years, right? This is really, really important. I can't tell you how many times kids will choose a college without any influence from their parents because it's where their friends are going, or because they want to live in a certain place or in a city or a certain environment, or because of some sports team. And they realize that all of those reasons, as fun as they might be, are not the reasons that can provide them with a good learning experience. And that's why a lot of kids nowadays take up to 6.5 years to finish a 4-year degree. So, anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. That has a different financial problem, right? Because you got to pay for 2 or more years that you didn't have to pay for. So, number one, you got to find a college that's a good fit for your student. Number two, you got to find colleges where your student will be a good fit for them, for the colleges. Look, if your student is going to rank somewhere in the top 20 to 25% of the incoming freshman class, not only will they have an easier time getting in, which is hard enough, it's going to give them an edge. But they're also likely to receive better financial aid packages. And they're going to have more leverage to negotiate for even better financial aid packages when they get in, but before accepting any college offer. Number three, and this is the one that gets overlooked the most, the college has to be a good financial fit for your family. Look, simply said, if you can afford to send your child to a college for all 4 years, it's a good financial fit. And remember, it's not about the sticker price. So many families will choose low priced in state schools because they think, well, that's all that they can afford. And sometimes even that's a stretch. That's a myth. It's not about the sticker price, it's all about how much you're going to end up paying out of your pocket. So each one of these three things that I just mentioned are really, really important. And if you take the time when your kids are sophomores, and most importantly, when they're juniors in high school, looking at colleges, and you find good fit colleges in these three different sides, right? The college has to be a good fit for your student. The student is a good fit for the college. And the college is a really good financial fit for the family. If you do these three things, you're not going to find yourself in this place because it doesn't matter ultimately which of the colleges that your student applies to. Give them an acceptance, because each one of the acceptance letters that they get will come from a college that you know in advance you're going to be able to afford, because you'll know where the money's going to come from to bridge the gap. Look, if you're a lower income family, right, then you want to look at colleges from a financial fit perspective, right, that will meet 100% of your demonstrated need for financial assistance. That's simple. Now, if you're a high income family on the other end of the spectrum, then make sure your child is picking colleges that either discount their tuition for high income families or provide merit based scholarship that your child can actually qualify for. Now, what if your child or your family is somewhere in the middle? What if you're in a middle income family? Well, then make sure your child is picking colleges that provide both of those things. Make sure that they can get all the need based financial aid that they or that you as a family qualify for and need, and make sure that the college can also give them some merit assistance so that together these two things will make this college affordable to you, right? And remember the first two things that I mentioned, in addition to this third, making sure that it's a good financial fit. Make sure that your student is a good match for the school and the school is a good match for your student. If you do these three things and help your kids find better fit colleges, I guarantee that you're not only going to get better financial aid packages from the start, but you're going to have a lot more leverage to negotiate with colleges for better packages after they get accepted, but before you accept their offer. See, you're going to tilt the scales and put the power in and more control into your hands. Now, the second thing that I always tell families who come to us saying, "Oh God, how do we get financial aid in the second year because we didn't get it now?" is to also go back and look over their financial aid forms because it's not very complicated, but it's easy to make some big mistakes. Or I shouldn't say big mistakes. They seem like they're small mistakes, but they have really big consequences on the back end, which is, again, it's three things. Make sure that you're filling out the right financial aid forms. Make sure you're filling them out in the right way and that you're submitting them at the right time. That's all there is to it. It's three things for finding a good college match, and it's three things when it comes to financial aid application forms. Let me cover that really quickly. Submit the right forms in the right way at the right time. What do I mean by that? So, look, there are only two main financial aid forms there's the FAFSA and there's the CSS profile. The FAFSA, everybody should complete. It doesn't matter whether you think you're going to qualify for government need based financial aid or not. Complete the form anyways. You've got nothing to lose but 30 minutes of your time. Because if you're well prepared, it's going to take you no more than 30 minutes to fill out the form. It's easy. It's online. You don't have to leave your home. It's super simple. And some colleges will give your kids merit financial aid only if you submit at the FAFSA. And if you don't, they might not give you a discount or a merit scholarship, and you're going to end up paying the full sticker price out of your pocket. I think 30 minutes should be worth that kind of benefit. The second financial aid form is not required for every college. It's called the CSS profile. Just make sure that if the form is required for the colleges that your student is applying to, that you actually complete the form. Oftentimes, I see families make the mistake of not submitting either one of the two forms because they heard from somebody in their community that they make too much money, they have too many assets, or they're just an average middle class family, and the government has no love for the middle class family, so you're not going to get anything. Why bother? Well, I've already covered that. You should bother. It doesn't take much time. It's pretty straightforward. You have to submit the forms. If you want to get money from colleges or from the government, submit the form regardless of whether you think you'll qualify. Just make sure you're filling out the right form. I've heard also families who come to us in frustration saying, "Hey, I filled out the FAFSA. Why didn't I get financial aid forms? Or why didn't I get financial aid?" Excuse me. Well, so we'll go look on the college's financial aid profile, and right there it would say they also require the second form, the CSS profile, to be submitted as well. And the family says, "Oh, we didn't realize that. We thought it was just the FAFSA because that's all we hear about is the FAFSA, the FAFSA, the FAFSA." One of the things I want to mention is that if your kids don't have well, actually, that's not true. Even if they have a private college counselor, as well intentioned and incredibly, you know, ed, expert as they are in helping kids select the right colleges and get into colleges and do all the test prep correctly, they're not experts in financial aid. And so oftentimes families will just sort of delegate that part uh, to the college counselor, thinking they're going to cover that part with their kids, but they usually don't because that's not their domain. So don't leave this to chance and don't just outsource it to somebody who's not in that area. And the same is true if your kids are going to their high school college counselor. I mean, those folks are so overworked and they have so many kids coming to them constantly that your child is probably not even going to spend enough time with their high school counselor to even know about the right forms. So please, if you're a parent of a younger student, like write this down and remember it. Figure out which forms each one of the colleges wants you to submit. Submit every financial aid form that they require, because if you only do one of the two forms, you're not going to get the money that they might otherwise have given you. All right. The second thing about the financial aid forms is to complete them in the right way. This is another area that I see so many families make small mistakes that end up having those really big consequences in the end. And the kind of the two biggest, or I should say, three biggest um, areas of mistakes are either families over-report the value of the savings that they have to disclose on those financial aid forms. I won't go into it in this episode. You can watch some of the prior ones, or you can reach out to me and I'll forward it to you. But financial aid forms don't want you to report the value that you see on your computer screen or on your statements. There's a way for you to discount or lower the value. It's called the net value that they're actually asking about. So if you just put the value that you see in front of you, you're likely going to over-report the amount of money that you actually have, making colleges think you should be able to pay more than you really can. The second area of mistakes that I see when it comes to not submitting forms correctly is that they make simple errors. They might end up including something that they didn't have to disclose at all. It's not about the value of the thing, it's about even including the thing on the form because financial aid forms don't want you to report everything. They are very specific about what they're looking for in order to determine how much they want you to pay, but they don't make it very clear. And you got to either read the small print of the actual financial aid forms, do your own research, or reach out to someone like ourselves, a financial aid expert that can walk you through it and review your form before you submit to make sure you're not including things on the form that you don't have to or are not required to report. Because if you do, again, you're letting colleges think that you have more money to pay for college than you really do. And then the third area are small mistakes, like putting an extra digit or leaving a field blank. And financial aid forms just don't get processed. Whatever the case, these little mistakes or these little errors or these little omissions can mean that your financial aid form doesn't get processed or it doesn't get processed correctly. And therefore, you're not going to get the financial aid that you could have gotten and would have gotten and should have gotten had you just done that correctly. So, filling out the right forms in the right way is important. And last but not least, filling them out and submitting them at the right time. There are deadlines for each one of the financial aid forms that you need to know about. But please do yourself a favor and never wait until the deadline to submit your forms. Because financial aid, I should say the best financial aid, is given out on a first come, first served basis. So if you're waiting until the deadline, the line waiting for financial aid is going to be so long that by the time you get to the front of that line, I can almost guarantee that there's not going to be any cash left because all of the best financial aid, the free money, gets given out first. Okay. And by the time your turn comes, the only things you might qualify for are loans. The government and colleges consider loans to be financial aid, just like free money, just like cash, just like scholarships and grants. But to you, they're very, very different things. So please don't wait. Submit the forms at the right time, which means submit them early, right? Reserve your place in that financial aid line as soon as you can. So if you do these two things, you find good match colleges for your kids and with your kids, right? So that they can apply to all equally great matched colleges, then fill out the right forms in the right way and at the right time. You're not going to be in the same position that these other families find themselves in, which is the reason I'm sharing this with you. Because you can avoid all of these problems that you may otherwise encounter if you miss these two very important things. But what if you are that other family, right? What if you are in this position right now? What if your kids just got into college, but they didn't get the financial aid that you needed? Well, you got to go back to the drawing board. Do the same two things that I just mentioned. And the very first thing you got to do is find out whether the college that your kid just got into is actually a good financial fit for your family. And if it is a good fit for your family and they actually have the money to give you, but they didn't for whatever reason, well, it's most likely then there was a problem with one of the financial aid forms. So start talking with the financial aid office at the college that your student is already enrolled in and start working with them to figure out what went wrong. They'll work with you. Your student is officially enrolled. They're interested in making sure that your student can actually stay for all 4 years without transferring out because colleges get rated and ranked based upon their graduation rate. So you definitely want to engage with the financial aid office. And then if you discover that there was a problem with one of the financial aid forms, well, don't make the same mistake come October of this year when you'll be filling out the same financial aid forms for next year, for their second year, for the sophomore year of college. And hopefully then you'll get all the money that the college has allocated for you. But what if the college is not a good financial fit? What if you do your research and realize that your student just got into a school that doesn't have any money to give you? Well, then you have to make a really, really tough decision. On one hand, do you start looking for a different college where your student should transfer for their sophomore year where they can get the money so that years 2 through 4 are actually going to be affordable for you and for your student? Or do you stay? And do you end up digging deep into your savings and overpaying? Or do you end up borrowing for all 4 years and digging yourself into debt? That's a tough call to make. Um, I think when families come to me and say, well, what do you think? Every single time I tell them, find a better fit college. It's better for your student to transfer in the first year or even after the first semester than it is for them to transfer in the second, third, or fourth year, because then you're just extending the number of years that they're going to be in college and they're not going to form that same connection with the school and with the alumni and with this, there's the teachers, the other kids, and they're just it's not as good of an experience overall for anybody. I made that mistake personally when I went to college many years ago. When I transferred colleges, I lost some of the credits that I had already taken because I went from a quarter-based system to a semester-based system. Not something I realized or even thought about at the time, but doing that made me lose 1 year worth of school. So I actually stayed for 5 years and paid for 1 extra year that I didn't have to pay for. And if you know my story, then you know that this is just one of many mistakes that I had made personally. And I didn't get the money that I should have gotten from either of the first two colleges. So this is the reason why I'm doing these things, is to help you avoid making the same mistakes, do better, because you can. You absolutely can. You absolutely should have a better experience than so many other before you. So just help your kids find really good fit colleges if you still have the time to do this. And remember the three sides of finding a good fit. Make sure that the college is a good fit for your student, the student is a good fit for the college, and that the college is a good financial aid fit or financial fit for you as a family. And then once you find those colleges, apply to them and fill out the financial aid forms. Complete the right financial aid forms, complete them in the right way, and submit them at the right time. And if you're a family who just got into college and can't get the money, start talking to your financial aid office now. If you want more help, feel free to reach out. You can always go on our website, which is pillar6college.com. We also have our private inner circle community of college planning families that go through this process. You can go to www.freemoneyfirst.com, see if it's a good fit. But it's a community of college bound families who learn together and they share both their frustrations as well as their successes. They hear from experts, myself included, and how to do all the right things without missing anything that's important and without making any of the mistakes that end up costing families a lot of stress, a lot of lost time, and unfortunately, a lot of money. So, with that, I wish you all the very best. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I hope that you will have a much better college planning experience because of it. And so, with that, we'll talk to you next week. Take care. Thanks for watching.